Under a microscope, this may look fascinating, but this is anthrax and it can be potentially deadly. Anthrax entered the U.S. national consciousness in 2001 when shortly after the 9/11 attacks, letters containing powdered anthrax arrived at news organizations and the offices of U.S. senators. While anthrax was not seen in the U.S. until 2001, the Soviet Union produced an estimated of 4,500 metric tons of anthrax spores during its covert biological weapons program research and production. The Soviets repeatedly denied having carried out these activities that were in violation of a 1972 treaty they had signed. The Union, which collapsed in 1991, reported these workers died from consuming contaminated meat, which most believed to be a cover story for what was really happening. Analysts used data to determine that the anthrax outbreak did occur from a microbiology facility, leaving this to be known as the largest outbreak of inhalation anthrax in history. The last anthrax outbreak in the U.S. occurred in 2011 to a man from Minneapolis. This has us questioning, is anthrax really a thing of the past? But what is anthrax really? We here at the University of Florida Microbiology Department have decided to do some researching. Anthrax is a serious infectious disease caused by gram-positive rod-shaped bacteria known as Bacillus anthracis. This disease of anthrax is primarily found in domesticated and wild animals such as sheep, cattle, horses, mules, and goats. It cannot be transmitted from person to person. People get infected with anthrax when spores get into the body. This can happen when people breathe in spores, eat food or drink water that is contaminated with spores, or get spores in a cut or scrape in the skin. The most common form of the disease in humans is cutaneous anthrax, which is acquired through injured skin or mucous membranes, which has accounted for greater than 95% of human cases globally. So what exactly happens where a person is exposed to anthrax? When the skin is exposed to spores of Bacillus anthracis, the spores germinate, cells multiply, and a jelly-like edema develops at the site of contact. It then forms into a larger ulcer covered by a black scab-like covering. This disease becomes fatal only once the toxins produced by Bacillus anthracis invade the bloodstream. The fatality rate of cutaneous anthrax is only about 20%. This short video illustrates the route which anthrax travels through the body. Who can get exposed? Really, anyone is vulnerable to anthrax exposure. However, people who handle animal products, veterinarians, livestock producers, travelers, laboratory professionals, mail handlers, military personnel, and response workers are more likely to be exposed to anthrax spores. Areas that experience outbreaks of anthrax are generally agricultural areas in developing countries where farm animals are not routinely vaccinated against anthrax.
While anthrax can be found globally, it is more common in developing countries or countries without veterinary public health programs. This includes countries like Southern and Eastern Europe, Asia, Central America, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Middle East. However, in the United States, it has occurred in the areas of Arkansas, Texas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Mississippi, and California. If foreign, why hasn't it been so widespread in the United States? Anthrax is not widely spread in the United States because vaccination of livestock against anthrax occurs on a yearly basis. But this doesn't mean that the U.S. is 100% clean of anthrax. Cases have been reported in 2006, 2009, and 2011. In 2015, the United States experienced an anthrax scare that widened to 51 labs in 17 states and 3 foreign countries. These samples were mailed from a Utah Army facility by commercial post to laboratories over the past 10 years. The Pentagon has maintained that there was no risk to the general public. U.S. Department of Defense Commander Franka Jones demonstrated how the anthrax was packaged to reduce exposure.
Ziploc bag and close it up as another layer of protection for anything that leaks. We provide absorbent material that would be just sufficient to capture the amount of liquid if it were all to leak out of the vial. Another seal to make sure nothing could leak. We put it in another box.
Let's revisit what happened with the anthrax scare in the Soviet Union. 77 people that lived near the Soviet production facility died from anthrax. Recently, the genome of anthrax spores from two of these 77 people has been sequenced by scientists from Northern Arizona University and the Translational Genomics Research Institute. The sequencing of this genome has proven that the strain was never manipulated to be resistant to drugs by the societies, as was once controversially claimed. This study proves how deadly the strain is from the start, and leaves us questioning how dangerous a drug-resistant strain of anthrax could be. In addition, the study proves information about the specific deadly strain so that the rest of the world may continue research on how to stop this biological weapon. Though anthrax is dangerous, it is not unstoppable. A common treatment for anthrax is penicillin. However, as was the concern with the Soviets, anthrax can be manipulated to be penicillin resistant so that it can be used as a more effective bioweapon. Other drugs used to treat anthrax include ciprofloxacin and doxycycline. But when it comes down to it, anthrax is not a concern for most common people. Most people who come into contact with anthrax will do so for purposes involving engineering of anthrax as a bioweapon or those working with animals that do not receive vaccinations. So though anthrax may not be a large concern for the everyday person, it is important that we all understand the impact it could play on our lives if manipulated by the wrong hands.